The rain had stopped hours ago, but the streets of Crescent Bay still glistened under the pale streetlights. Fog rolled in from the Pacific, thick and heavy, wrapping the small Oregon coastal town in a blanket of gray. Most residents had already retreated indoors for the evening, their windows glowing warm against the autumn chill. But not everyone had a warm place to go. On the corner of Harbor Street and Pine Avenue, beneath the flickering neon sign of Crescent Bay Animal Clinic, a shape moved in the shadows. The golden retriever was old, his once bright coat now faded to a dull cream, matted in places with mud and rain. His left front leg hung at an awkward angle as he limped forward, each step measured and deliberate. His brown eyes, clouded slightly with age, held a depth of purpose that would have caught anyone's attention had anyone been watching. But the street was empty, or nearly so. Inside the clinic, Dr. Emma Rodriguez locked the medicine cabinet with a tired sigh. 28 and fresh from 2 years at a high-volume practice in Portland, she'd thought moving to this quiet coastal town would bring peace, a slower pace, time to heal from losses she didn't like to think about. Instead, she'd found herself working 14-hour days, covering for the only other vet in town who'd been out with the flu for 2 weeks. Emma pulled her dark hair into a messy bun and grabbed her jacket from the hook. Her phone showed 9:47 p.m. Another late night. Her small apartment above the bakery 3 blocks away called to her with promises of hot tea and mindless television. Maybe she'd actually get 7 hours of sleep for once. The sound hit her as soon as she opened the clinic door. A low, persistent bark. Not aggressive, but insistent. Urgent. Emma's shoulders slumped. You've got to be kidding me. In the pool of light from the clinic's entrance, the old golden retriever sat, his tail thumping weakly against the wet sidewalk. His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her pause. Hey there, buddy. Emma's voice softened despite her exhaustion. I'm closed for the night. If you're hurt, you can come back in the morning, okay? The dog barked again. Once. Sharp. Then he stood, wincing as weight shifted to his bad leg, and took several steps down the sidewalk. He turned back to look at her. Barked again. Emma shook her head. I can't. I'm sorry. I've been here since 6 this morning. She turned to lock the clinic door behind her, fumbling with her keys. There's a shelter 2 towns over that does emergency intake. I can call them if you... The bark cut her off. Louder this time. More urgent. When Emma turned around, the dog had limped closer. Close enough that she could see the old leather collar around his neck, worn smooth and nameless. Close enough to see the gray around his muzzle, the slight tremble in his haunches from age and cold and pain. But his eyes, God, his eyes held something she couldn't quite name, something that made her throat tight. What is it? She heard herself ask, as if the dog could answer. What's wrong? The golden retriever turned and limped down the sidewalk again, more urgently this time. He stopped after 10 feet and looked back, barked, waited. Emma pulled her jacket tighter. I'm not following a stray dog into the dark. That's literally how horror movies start. But even as she said it, her feet carried her forward. 2 steps. 3. The dog's tail wagged once. He limped forward again. This is insane, Emma muttered. But she kept walking. For 15 minutes they moved through the sleeping town. The dog leading, Emma following at a cautious distance. They passed the darkened windows of Rosie's Diner, the hardware store with its perpetually peeling paint, the library with its new memorial garden for veterans. The fog grew thicker as they headed west. Toward the cliffs, Emma's unease grew with each block. Okay, this is far enough. I need to get home. But the dog pressed on, his limp more pronounced now. He was hurting, badly, yet he wouldn't stop. They reached the end of Cliffview Drive, where the pavement gave way to a dirt path. Warning signs marked the area. Unstable ground. Recent. Landslide activity. Keep out. Emma stopped. Absolutely not. I'm not going out there. The dog looked back at her. In the dim moonlight filtering through the fog, Emma could see his sides heaving with effort. He'd pushed himself to the limit getting here. Whatever drove him, it was stronger than pain, stronger than exhaustion. He barked. Not at her. into the darkness beyond the warning signs. And from somewhere in that darkness, faint and weak, came a sound that made Emma's blood run cold. Help. The word was barely audible over the distant crash of waves against rocks. But it was human, and it was desperate. Emma's hand flew to her phone, pulling it from her pocket. No signal. Of course not. The cliffs were a dead zone. Damn it. She looked at the dog, who was already limping down the path into the darkness. Wait. You can't. But he could. And he did. Emma's internal debate lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then she was running after him, using her phone's flashlight to navigate the treacherous path. The recent rains had turned the trail into a mudslide. Several sections had collapsed entirely, leaving gaps in the earth that showed how close they were to the cliff's edge. Hello? Emma called out. I'm here to help. Where are you? Here. The voice was stronger now, coming from somewhere to her left. Down here, Emma swung her flashlight toward the voice and gasped. 20 feet ahead, the ground had given way completely. What had once been a flat overlook area was now a chaos of mud, rocks, and uprooted trees. And there, partially buried beneath a fallen pine tree, was a man. The golden retriever was already at his side, licking his face, whimpering. Oh my God. Emma scrambled down the slope, sliding in the mud. Sir, are you hurt? Don't move, okay? Don't try to move. As she got closer, her flashlight revealed more details. The man was elderly, probably in his 70s, with a weathered face and gray hair plastered to his forehead with mud and rain. He wore layers of clothing, all of them torn and dirty. A tattered military jacket, boots with holes in the soles, the unmistakable markers of someone living on the streets. His left leg was pinned beneath the tree trunk, bent at an unnatural angle. He'd been here for hours, maybe longer, in the cold, in the rain, alone. Except he hadn't been alone. Not really. Good boy, buddy, the man whispered, his hand reaching up to touch the dog's head. Good boy. You found her? Emma knelt in the mud beside them, her mind racing through triage priorities. Sir, I'm Dr. Rodriguez. I'm a veterinarian, not a doctor. But I know first aid. Can you tell me your name? Henry. His voice was weak but steady. Henry Morrison. And you've already met Buddy. The golden retriever pressed closer to Henry, as if trying to keep him warm. Emma could see the dog was shaking, either from cold or exhaustion, or both. How long have you been here, Henry? Since the slide. Yesterday afternoon, I think. Lost track of time. He coughed, and Emma saw blood on his lips. Internal injuries. Possibly a punctured lung. This was bad. My phone doesn't have signal here. I need to go back to town. Call 911. No signal anywhere on this path, Henry said. I tried. Before my phone died. Emma looked at the dog, then back at Henry. How did Buddy find me? How did he know to come to the clinic? For the first time. Henry smiled. Just a little. Smart dog. Always has been. Smarter than most people I've known. He's yours? Was. Long time ago. Henry's eyes closed briefly, and Emma's heart stuttered with fear. But they opened again, focusing on the dog beside him. Had to give him up when things went bad. 3 years ago. Thought I'd never see him again. Emma felt tears burning her eyes. He remembered you. After 3 years. He remembered. Dogs don't forget. Henry whispered. Not the important things. Emma pulled off her jacket and laid it over Henry's chest. I'm going to run back to town. There's a fire station 5 minutes from here. I'll bring help. Wait. Henry's hand grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. You should know. The ground's not stable. The whole section could go. Take Buddy with you. Don't let him stay. I'm not leaving you. I mean it. If something happens, nothing's going to happen. I'll be back in 15 minutes. 20 tops. Emma looked at the dog. Buddy. Stay with Henry. Guard. As if he understood, the dog lowered himself carefully beside Henry. his body pressed against the old man's side for warmth. Emma's run back to town was a blur of mud and panic. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. When the lights of Crescent Bay finally appeared through the fog, she nearly sobbed with relief. The fire station's bay doors were closed, but lights burned inside. Emma pounded on the side door until it opened, revealing a stocky man in his 50s with Captain Torres stitched on his jacket. "Please," Emma gasped. Man trapped. Cliff view drive, landslide, leg pinned, possible internal bleeding. "We need." Captain Torres was already shouting orders into the station. Within 2 minutes, 2 trucks were rolling. Within 3, Emma was in the passenger seat of a rescue vehicle, directing them back to the cliffs. The rescue took 2 hours. 2 hours of careful work with hydraulic jacks and rope systems and prayers that the ground wouldn't give way further. 2 hours of watching Buddy refuse to leave Henry's side, even when the firefighters tried to move him to safety. 2 hours of listening to Henry drift in and out of consciousness, his hand always reaching for the dog's fur. When they finally pulled Henry free and loaded him onto a stretcher, Emma watched Buddy try to jump into the ambulance with him. The paramedic, a young woman with kind eyes, started to wave him away. "Wait," Emma said. "Let him go. Please." The paramedic looked at her supervisor, who shrugged. "Why not? Dog probably saved his life. Least we can do is let them ride together." At Seaside Regional Hospital, Emma sat in the waiting room with Buddy at her feet. She'd called ahead to clear it with the staff. "Emotional support animal," she'd said. Nobody questioned it. 2 hours passed. Then 3. Emma dozed in her chair, jerking awake every time a door opened. Buddy never slept. He just waited, his graying muzzle resting on his paws, his eyes fixed on the emergency room doors. Dawn was breaking when Dr. Patel finally emerged. "Dr. Das Rodriguez." Emma jumped to her feet. "How is he?" "Stable. Fractured femur, 3 broken ribs, mild hypothermia, and a partially collapsed lung. But he'll live." Dr. Patel smiled. "He's tougher than he looks. And he keeps asking about a dog." Relief flooded through Emma. "Can we see him?" "Technically, we don't allow dogs in patient rooms." Dr. Patel looked down at Buddy, who gazed back with those soulful brown eyes. "But I think we can make an exception. Room 247. 5 minutes." The room was small and sterile, filled with the beeping of monitors and the hiss of oxygen. Henry looked impossibly fragile in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting him to various machines. But his eyes were open, alert, and when Buddy limped into the room, his tail started wagging. "Hey, old friend," Henry whispered. Buddy put his front paws on the edge of the bed, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. Emma helped him up onto the bed, where he curled carefully beside Henry, his head resting on the old man's chest. Henry's hand settled into the familiar spot behind Buddy's ears. "Thought I'd lost you forever." "You never lost him," Emma said softly. "He never stopped being yours." Over the next few days, Emma learned Henry's story in pieces. Decorated Marine, 2 tours in Vietnam, married for 30 years before cancer took his wife. Daughter killed in a car accident 6 months later. Depression, PTSD, a spiral into homelessness that he couldn't climb out of. Buddy had been his lifeline, adopted from a shelter after his wife passed. But when Henry lost his apartment, he'd surrendered the dog rather than subject him to life on the streets. "Broke my heart," Henry told her during one of her visits. "But I thought it was the right thing. Thought he'd find a better home. Be happy." Where did he end up? Henry's face darkened. Family about 30 miles north. They seemed nice enough. But Buddy kept running away. Animal control picked him up 6 times in the first year. Eventually, they just gave up. Let him go. How did he survive? Dogs are survivors. And Buddy's smart. I'd see him sometimes. In town. He'd see me too. We'd spend time together when we could. But I never tried to keep him. Didn't have anything to offer him. Emma's throat was tight. He obviously disagreed. On the 5th day, a social worker named Patricia Chen came to the hospital. She sat with Henry for an hour, then found Emma in the cafeteria. "I've got good news," Patricia said. "Henry qualifies for veteran housing assistance. There's a program through Oregon Veteran Services. Small apartments, affordable rent, support services. I can have him placed within 2 weeks." Emma felt hope bloom in her chest. "That's amazing. Does he know?" "Just told him," he cried. Patricia smiled. "First time I've seen him show any emotion since I started working with him. Usually, they're so shut down by the time they get to me." "What changed?" Patricia nodded toward the window. Through the glass they could see into Henry's room. Buddy was on the bed again, his head on Henry's lap. That changed. Having something to live for makes all the difference. The placement happened faster than anyone expected. A studio apartment in assisted living complex called Harborview, overlooking the bay. Small but clean, with a kitchenette and a bathroom and a window that caught the morning sun. The complex allowed pets, no restrictions. Emma helped Henry move in, which mostly meant helping him settle onto the couch while she carried in the donated furniture and supplies the community had rallied together. News of the rescue had spread through Crescent Bay. Suddenly, everyone wanted to help. Rosie from the diner brought a week's worth of meals. The hardware store owner donated a new bed. The library staff put together a care package with books and puzzle books and magazines. Captain Torres and his crew from the fire station assembled the furniture and hung the curtains. "I don't know how to thank everyone," Henry said, overwhelmed. "You don't need to thank anyone," Emma said. "This is what communities do. We take care of our own." Buddy was doing better too. Emma had taken him to the clinic, treated his injured leg, which turned out to be an old fracture that had healed badly. With proper care and medication, he was walking better. Not perfect, but better. The limp would probably never fully disappear, but he wasn't in pain anymore. On a Saturday morning 2 weeks after the rescue, Emma stopped by Henry's apartment for a welfare check. She'd been doing this daily, making sure he was managing his medications, that his physical therapy was progressing. She found him on the small balcony, sitting in a lawn chair someone had donated. Buddy lay at his feet, dozing in the sun. Both of them looked more peaceful than Emma had ever seen them. "Beautiful day," Henry said by way of greeting. Emma settled into the other chair. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm alive again." Henry reached down to scratch Buddy's ears. "I spent 3 years just existing. Waiting to die, really. Didn't see the point in anything else. But now you have a reason. More than one." Henry looked at her. "Patricia told me about the job training program. For veterans, they help you get back into the workforce, even if you've been out for a while. I've got an interview next week. Maintenance position at the harbor master's office. Nothing fancy, but it's something." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "Henry, that's wonderful." "It is, isn't it?" He smiled, and Emma realized it was the first time she'd seen a real, genuine smile on his face. "I woke up this morning, and I had coffee on my balcony, and I watched the sunrise. And I had my dog with me, and I thought, this is what life is supposed to feel like." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the boats in the harbor below. Finally, Emma spoke. "Can I ask you something? That night, when Buddy found me, how did he know to come to the clinic? How did he know I could help?" Henry was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Maybe he remembered that you were a vet. Maybe he just knew you were the kind of person who'd follow a strange dog into the dark. Maybe." He trailed off, then shook his head. "My wife used to say that animals understand things we don't. That they see the world differently, more clearly. In some ways, she said dogs know good people from bad. That they can sense who has a good heart." Emma thought about that night. How tired she'd been. How much she'd wanted to just go home. How close she'd come to turning Buddy away. "I almost didn't follow him," she admitted. "I almost just went home. But you didn't. That's what matters." Henry reached over and squeezed her hand. "You saved my life. Both of you did. Buddy did the hard part. I just made a phone call. You did more than that. You gave me hope. Reminded me that the world still has good people in it. People who see someone in trouble and actually help instead of just walking past. Henry's voice grew thick. You know how many people walked past me on the streets? Hundreds. Thousands, probably. Just walked right by. Like I wasn't even there. Emma couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. But a dog, Henry continued. A dog I had to give up 3 years ago. A dog who had every reason to forget about me and move on. That dog walked 30 miles to find help when I needed it. Never gave up on me. Not once in 3 years. Buddy stirred at Henry's feet, lifting his head as if he knew they were talking about him. His tail thumped twice against the balcony floor. Emma stayed for another hour, sharing stories and coffee and watching the bay. When she finally stood to leave, Henry walked her to the door. Buddy followed, his limp barely noticeable now. Same time next week? Emma asked. Actually, Henry said, I was hoping you might come by Thursday instead. Patricia's helping me reconnect with my son. He lives in Seattle. We haven't spoken in 5 years, but he's going to drive down to meet me for lunch. And I thought, he looked nervous. I thought maybe you could be there. Just in case. Emma's heart swelled. I'd be honored. She knelt down to give Buddy a final pat. The old dog leaned into her hand, his eyes soft with contentment. You take care of him, okay? He needs you. Buddy's tail wagged as if in agreement. As Emma walked back to her car, she heard Henry call after her. Hey, Doc. She turned. Thank you. For seeing us. For really seeing us. Emma smiled through the tears now streaming freely down her face. Thank you for letting me. Driving back through town, Emma felt something shift inside her chest. Something that had been tight and closed for so long. Since her grandfather's death 2 years ago. Since she'd realized she couldn't save everyone. Since she'd started questioning why she'd become a veterinarian in the first place. But now she remembered. She remembered why healing mattered. Why showing up mattered. Why following a limping dog into the dark sometimes leads you exactly where you need to be. She thought about what Henry had said. About being seen. About dogs knowing good people from bad. About second chances and hope and the way life can surprise you when you're ready to give up. Emma had come to Crescent Bay to escape. To hide from grief and loss and the weight of caring too much. But Buddy had found her anyway. Had seen her. Had known, somehow, that she was exactly the person he needed. Or maybe she'd been the one who needed him. As she pulled into the clinic parking lot, her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Henry's son. Just confirmed for Thursday. He's bringing his family. 3 grandkids Henry's never met. Big day coming up. Emma smiled and tucked the phone away. She had appointments this afternoon. A full schedule. But for the first time in months, she didn't dread it. She felt ready, present, alive, because sometimes the ones we rescue us right back. And sometimes a limping old dog with clouded eyes and a heart full of loyalty reminds us why we became healers in the first place. Emma looked up at the clinic sign, Crescent Bay Animal Clinic. Home. She was right where she belonged, and somewhere across town, an old man and his faithful dog were home too. Together at last, where they'd always belonged. The fog was rolling in from the Pacific again, thick and heavy. But inside Harbor View Apartment 3B, warm light glowed through the windows, and if you listened carefully, beneath the sound of waves and wind, you might hear the soft thump of a tail against hardwood floors. The sound of a dog at peace, the sound of loyalty rewarded, the sound of family, because that's what they were now. All of them. Emma, Henry, Buddy, connected by one dark night, and one impossible journey, and one dog who refused to give up. They'd all been lost in their own ways, wandering, searching, barely surviving, but they'd found each other. And in finding each other, they'd found themselves. And really, isn't that what home is? Not a place, but a feeling. The feeling of being seen, being needed, being loved. The feeling of knowing that no matter how far you wander, no matter how lost you become, There's someone out there who will never stop looking for you. Someone who will walk 30 miles with a broken leg to bring you help. Someone who will follow a stranger into the dark because that's what good people do. Someone who will hold your hand and remind you that you're not invisible. That you matter. That your story isn't over yet. In the end, that's what Buddy taught them. All of them. That loyalty isn't just about staying. It's about returning. About remembering. About refusing to give up even when giving up would be easier. It's about seeing someone not as they are, but as they were, as they could be again. It's about having faith when everyone else has lost theirs. And maybe, just maybe, it's about recognizing that the broken ones, the limping ones, the forgotten ones, those are the ones with the biggest hearts, the ones most worth saving, because they know what it means to be lost, and they know what it takes to find your way home.